In the harsh Arizona territory of 1880, where justice rode on horseback and mercy was scarce, one truth remained. A man's character is forged in hardship and choices made when darkness falls. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Joshua Carter's weathered face as he guided his horse through the Sonoran Valley. The black cowboy had spent 3 days in Tombstone, selling his finest horses to the mining companies. His saddlebags jingled with silver coins, enough to keep his small ranch running through the harsh winter months. The familiar sight of his modest wooden home came into view, nestled between two red mesas. But something was wrong. His keen eyes spotted movement near the old oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of his property. Joshua's heart hammered against his ribs as he dismounted, his boots hitting the dusty ground with deliberate caution. There, hanging from the gnarled branch of the ancient oak, was a young white woman. Her dress was torn, her golden hair matted with blood and dirt. A crude wooden sign hung around her neck, its message carved in jagged letters. "Thus we punish traitors." The woman's chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate breaths. She was barely alive, but alive nonetheless. Joshua's hands trembled as he reached for his knife. "Easy now, miss," Joshua whispered, though she remained unconscious. His weathered hands worked quickly but carefully, sawing through the rough hemp rope that bound her wrists. The woman's body was light as a feather as he caught her, her skin pale as fresh snow against his dark arms. Blood had dried on her temple and purple bruises marked her throat. Joshua's jaw clenched with rage at the sight of such cruelty. He knew that helping her would bring danger to his doorstep, but he couldn't leave another soul to suffer. Carrying the unconscious woman toward his home, Joshua's mind raced with questions and fears. Who was she? What had she done to deserve such treatment? And most importantly, who had done this to her? The wooden sign around her neck suggested she was accused of betrayal, but Joshua had learned long ago that accusations in the Arizona territory were often false. His boots creaked on the porch steps as he pushed open his front door. The simple interior of his home, a single room with a stone fireplace and his father's old rocking chair, would have to serve as a sanctuary. Joshua laid the unconscious woman on his own bed, the only proper resting place in his modest home. With gentle hands, he cleaned her wounds using water from his well and strips torn from his cleanest shirt. The bruises on her neck told a story of violence that made his stomach turn. He lit the oil lamp and prepared a thin broth from dried beef and vegetables. "You're safe now," he whispered to her still form. "Whatever they said you done, you're safe here." He pulled his father's old quilt over her frail body and settled himself on the wooden floor of the adjoining room. 3 days passed before the woman's eyes fluttered open. Joshua had been checking on her regularly, spooning water between her cracked lips and changing her bandages. When she finally awoke, her blue eyes were wide with terror. She pressed herself against the wall, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, don't hurt me." Joshua raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Name's Joshua Carter, miss. You're on my ranch. You're safe now." He kept his distance, understanding her fear. "I'll call you Emily," he said gently. "That was my sister's name." Emily remained silent for days, accepting food, but watching Joshua with suspicious eyes. She flinched whenever he moved too quickly, and sometimes he caught her staring at the door as if planning to run. Joshua respected her silence, leaving meals beside her bed and sleeping on the floor in the next room. He noticed how she clutched a small leather pouch to her chest, never letting it leave her hands. Her fingers were stained with ink, suggesting she could read and write, unusual for many folks in these parts. There was something refined about her, despite her current condition. While Emily slept, Joshua examined the torn clothing she'd been wearing, hoping to find clues about her identity. Hidden in the lining of her dress, he discovered a strange gold coin unlike any he'd seen before. Strange symbols were etched around its edges, neither English nor Spanish. Wrapped carefully in oilcloth was a folded letter written in some kind of code. The handwriting was neat and precise, with numbers and symbols that meant nothing to him. Joshua studied the mysterious items by lamplight, wondering what secrets this frightened woman carried. Whatever she was hiding, it was clearly worth killing for. The sound of approaching horses shattered the morning silence. Joshua peered through his window, to see Sheriff Morrison riding up with two deputies, their badges glinting in the harsh sunlight. Emily had been recovering for a week now, though she still barely spoke. "Carter," the sheriff called out, dismounting heavily. "We're looking for a fugitive. White woman, young, blonde hair. She's wanted for theft and arson over in Prescott County." Joshua stepped onto his porch, his face carefully neutral. "Morning, Sheriff. What brings you all the way out here?" Sheriff Morrison pulled out a hand-drawn wanted poster, the sketch showing a woman who looked remarkably like Emily. "This here's Sarah Mitchell. Stole family jewels from the Henderson Ranch and burned down their stables. There's a $100 reward for her capture." Joshua studied the poster with feigned interest, his heart racing. "Can't say I've seen anyone matching that description, Sheriff. Been pretty quiet out here." One of the deputies, a lean man with suspicious eyes, pointed to the clothesline where Emily's dress hung drying. "Whose woman's clothing is that, Carter?" Joshua's mind worked quickly. Had a traveler passed through a few days back? Woman and her husband heading to California? She washed some things here in exchange for a meal and a place to rest their horses. The suspicious deputy walked closer to the clothesline, examining the torn fabric. "Looks like these clothes seen some trouble," he observed. Joshua shrugged casually. "Rough country out there. Folks get banged up on the trail." Sheriff Morrison studied Joshua's face carefully. "You sure you ain't seen this woman, Carter? You know harboring a fugitive is a serious crime." "I told you, Sheriff, ain't seen nobody matching that description." Joshua's voice remained steady despite his racing pulse. The three lawmen exchanged glances before mounting their horses. "Well, if you do see her, you send word immediately. That reward money could set a man up nice." After they rode away, Joshua waited until the dust settled completely before returning inside. Emily emerged from the root cellar where she'd been hiding, her face pale with fear. "They were talking about me, weren't they?" she whispered. Joshua nodded grimly. "Seems like you got more trouble than I thought, Emily." That evening, Emily finally broke her silence. Sitting by the fireplace, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "My name isn't Sarah Mitchell, it's Emily Whitmore. I was a governess for the Henderson family in Prescott County." Joshua listened intently as she continued, her hands trembling. "Mr. Henderson, he was cruel to his workers. Beat them for the smallest mistakes, withheld their wages. When I threatened to report him to the territorial authorities, he—" Her voice broke. "He said I stole his wife's jewelry and set fire to the stables to cover my tracks. But that's not the whole truth," Emily continued, pulling the mysterious gold coin from her leather pouch. "This belonged to my father, Professor Marcus Whitmore. He was an archaeologist who spent years studying ancient treasures in the Southwest." Joshua examined the coin more closely, noting its strange symbols. "Before he died, he gave me this letter," Emily said, producing the coded document. "He said it contained information about a hidden treasure in the mountains, something that could change my life forever." Her eyes met Joshua's. "I think that's why Henderson really wanted me silenced." Joshua studied the cryptic letter by lamplight, his brow furrowed in concentration. "These symbols, they look like some kind of map coordinates," he murmured. Emily nodded eagerly. "Father said the treasure was hidden in the sacred mountains of the Navajo people. He spent his last years researching its location." She paused, her voice growing heavy with sadness. "I think Henderson discovered my father's work somehow. Maybe he planned to force the information out of me." Joshua looked up from the letter. "Your father? What exactly did he find out there?" "Father believed he'd found traces of a lost Spanish gold mine," Emily explained, her voice growing stronger. "Not just any mine, one that was hidden during the Apache Wars decades ago. The Spanish miners sealed it up and left maps and code to protect it from raiders." Joshua's eyes widened with understanding. "And your father cracked that code?" Emily nodded. "He said the treasure was enough to help hundreds of people start new lives far from the violence and corruption of the territories." She looked directly at Joshua. "That's why I can't let Henderson get his hands on it. It's not just about my freedom anymore. It's about what my father died trying to protect." The fire crackled between them as Joshua stared into the flames, wrestling with his own painful memories. "I ain't just a simple rancher, Emily," he said quietly. "I was a deputy sheriff once, back in Colorado Territory. My family, they were killed in a raid while I was away on duty. His voice grew heavy with grief. Raiders came through, burned everything. My wife Sarah, my little boy Thomas. They didn't stand a chance. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she listened. I'm so sorry, Joshua. I had no idea. He nodded, unable to meet her gaze. Been running from that pain ever since. Joshua took a deep breath and continued his story. The worst part came after. My captain ordered me to arrest a group of innocent Mexican farmers, said they were harboring the raiders. I knew it was a lie. They were just scapegoats. He clenched his fists. When I refused to follow that order, I was branded a traitor and had to flee west. Been hiding out here ever since, trying to make an honest living. Emily reached out and gently touched his hand. You did the right thing, Joshua. It took courage to stand up for what's right. The gesture surprised them both. It was the first time she'd shown trust. There's something else, Joshua said, pulling out the coded letter. My father was a cartographer for the territorial survey. He taught me to read maps and decipher old Spanish documents. Emily's eyes widened with hope. You mean you can read this? Joshua nodded, studying the symbols more carefully. These numbers here, they're coordinates, marking distance and direction from landmark points. And these symbols, they're Spanish mining notations. He traced the patterns with his finger. Your father was tracking the location of an abandoned mine in the Navajo Sacred Mountains. Just like you said, working together by candlelight, Joshua and Emily slowly deciphered the mysterious map. According to this, the mine entrance is hidden behind a waterfall in Canyon de Chelly, Joshua explained. But that's deep in Navajo territory. It's sacred land to them. Emily studied the decoded directions intently. My father wrote that the Spanish miners respected the Navajo and sealed the mine to prevent others from disturbing their sacred sites. She looked up at Joshua with determination. Maybe if we approach them with respect, explain our situation. Joshua nodded thoughtfully. It's dangerous, but it might be our only chance for a new start. For both of us. The sound of approaching horses in the dead of night jolted Joshua awake. Through his window, he saw torches surrounding his ranch, at least a dozen men on horseback. Emily, wake up, he whispered urgently. We got company. Local ranchers and bounty hunters had decided to take matters into their own hands. Joshua grabbed his rifle and peered out. They ain't here to talk, he muttered grimly. Emily's face went pale as she heard rough voices calling out. We know you're hiding that woman, Carter. Send her out or we're coming in. This way, Joshua whispered, leading Emily to a hidden trapdoor beneath his kitchen table. Years of living as a fugitive had taught him to prepare for such moments. The narrow tunnel led to his barn, dug out during his first winter on the ranch. Stay close and stay quiet, he warned. Behind them, they heard boots stomping across his porch and the voices shouting orders. Search every corner, someone yelled. Joshua's heart pounded as they crawled through the cramped passage, Emily's breathing ragged with fear behind him. They emerged in the barn where Joshua quickly saddled 2 horses. Can you ride? He asked Emily, who nodded despite her trembling hands. The men were inside his house now, overturning furniture and cursing loudly. Joshua led both horses out the back of the barn, using the shadows to mask their movement. Once we mount up, we ride hard for the canyon, he whispered. Don't look back, no matter what happens. Emily gripped her reins tightly, her knuckles white in the moonlight. I'm ready, she whispered back. They spurred their horses into the night, the sound of hoofbeats echoing off the canyon walls. Behind them, angry shouts erupted as the men discovered their escape. There! They're heading for the mountains! Torches bobbed in the darkness as the pursuit began. Joshua led Emily through narrow paths he'd learned during his years of solitude, their horses sure-footed despite the treacherous terrain. Keep riding, he called over the wind. The treasure map was their only hope now. They had to reach Navajo territory before their pursuers caught up. At dawn, as they rode through Red Rock Canyon, armed men emerged from behind the stone formations. That's far enough, shouted their leader, a well-dressed man with silver hair. Joshua recognized him immediately. Richard Henderson, the wealthy rancher who had framed Emily. I've been expecting you, Miss Whitmore, Henderson said with a cold smile. You have something that belongs to me. Emily's face went white. You're the one behind all this. Henderson's men surrounded them, rifles drawn. Drop your weapons and dismount slowly. They were forced to a makeshift camp hidden in the canyon. Henderson studied the coded letter with greedy eyes. Your father was quite clever, but not clever enough to keep his research from me, he sneered. I've been tracking this treasure for months. Joshua's jaw tightened. So you framed an innocent woman for your own greed. Henderson laughed harshly. Innocent? She was going to expose my business methods. I simply solved two problems at once. He turned to Emily. Now, where exactly is this gold mine? Emily and Joshua sat bound beside the campfire, refusing to cooperate despite Henderson's threats. You can pressure us all you want, Emily said defiantly. I'll never help you steal what my father died protecting. Henderson's patience was wearing thin. Perhaps you need more persuasion. He nodded to his men, who began preparing harsher questioning methods. Joshua struggled against his bonds. Leave her alone, Henderson. This is between you and me now. When Joshua attempted to break free, one of the guards struck him hard across the shoulder with a rifle butt. Blood seeped through Joshua's torn shirt as he slumped against Emily. We have to get out of here, he whispered through gritted teeth. Emily tore strips from her dress to bandage his wounded shoulder. I won't let you suffer for my father's legacy, she whispered back. Henderson watched them with cruel amusement. How touching. Perhaps a night in the canyon cold will make you both more reasonable. As darkness fell, Joshua and Emily huddled together, both wondering if they would live to see another sunrise. At dawn, the canyon erupted with war cries as Navajo warriors charged into Henderson's camp. Their leader, Chief Eagle Feather, rode a magnificent painted horse, his face painted for battle. Henderson's men scrambled for their weapons, but they were outnumbered and surrounded. What is the meaning of this? Henderson shouted. Chief Eagle Feather's eyes found Joshua among the captives. Joshua Carter saved my son from bandits 2 winters ago. We have been watching, waiting for the right moment to repay this debt of honor. The Navajo warriors swiftly overpowered Henderson's men, binding them with rawhide ropes. Chief Eagle Feather personally cut Joshua and Emily free. You are hurt, my friend, he said, examining Joshua's wounded shoulder. My warriors will tend to your injury. Emily watched in amazement as the rescue unfolded. How did you know we were here? Joshua asked weakly. The chief smiled grimly. We have been tracking these men since they entered our territory. When we saw the injustice being done, we knew we must act. As his warriors secured the prisoners, Chief Eagle Feather spoke quietly with Joshua and Emily. These men spoke of treasure in our sacred mountains. This troubles me greatly. Emily stepped forward respectfully. Chief, my father was an archaeologist who respected your people. He believed the treasure should be used to help others, not for personal gain. The chief studied her with wise eyes. Your father, Professor Whitmore. Yes, we knew him. He was a good man who showed proper respect for our ways. The treasure you seek lies in the sacred Canyon de Chelly, Chief Eagle Feather said solemnly. It is an old Spanish mine, sealed long ago out of respect for our ancestors. Your father asked permission to study it, but never to disturb it. He looked at both Joshua and Emily. If you wish to find what your father protected, you must understand the responsibility that comes with it. The mountains are dangerous, and the spirits of the dead guard their secrets jealously. Are you prepared for such a journey? Chief Eagle Feather provided Joshua and Emily with 2 experienced Navajo guides, Running Wolf and Stone Bear. The path to the old mine is treacherous, the chief warned. Many who have tried to find it never returned. The spirits guard it well. Emily clutched her father's map tightly. We understand the risks, Chief, but this treasure could help many people start new lives. The guides prepared horses and supplies for the dangerous journey into the sacred mountains. Joshua's shoulder still ached, but determination drove him forward. The narrow mountain trails tested their courage at every turn. Loose rocks tumbled beneath their horses' hooves, and steep drops yawned beside the path. Running Wolf led them through passages so narrow they had to dismount and walk single file. The Spanish miners chose this location well, Stone Bear observed. Only those with true purpose would brave such dangers. Emily's heart raced as they climbed higher into the mist-shrouded peaks. The cold mountain air made her father's map brittle in her hands. After 2 days of climbing, they reached a hidden valley where ancient petroglyphs covered the canyon walls. "Your father came here," Running Wolf said, pointing to symbols carved into the red stone. "He understood that this place was sacred before the Spanish ever arrived." Emily studied the ancient drawings, figures of hunters, eagles, and mysterious spirals. "He always said the land held memories," she whispered. Following the map's directions, they discovered a waterfall cascading down the cliff face, just as her father had described. Behind the waterfall, partially hidden by centuries of mineral deposits, they found the entrance to the abandoned mine. "This is it," Emily breathed, her voice barely audible over the rushing water. Joshua examined the weathered Spanish markings carved into the stone. "The entrance has been sealed, but we can break through." Stone Bear placed a protective hand on his medicine pouch. "The spirits are watching. We must show proper respect." As they prepared to enter the mysterious cave, Emily felt her father's presence guiding them toward their destiny. Inside the cave, their torches revealed veins of pure gold running through the rock walls like glowing rivers. "Dear Lord," Joshua whispered, his voice echoing in the ancient chamber. Emily knelt beside a wooden chest left by the Spanish miners, filled with gold coins and nuggets. "Father was right. There's enough here to help hundreds of families." The Navajo guides stood respectfully at the entrance, honoring the sacred space. Emily's hands trembled as she realized her father's dream could finally become reality. As they gathered samples of the precious metal, footsteps echoed from the cave entrance. "Joshua! Emily!" called a familiar voice. A tall man in a deputy's badge emerged from the shadows. Thomas Mitchell, Joshua's old friend from Colorado. "Thomas?" Joshua gasped. "What are you doing here?" Thomas smiled broadly. "I've been tracking you for weeks, old friend. I have news that changes everything." Emily stepped protectively closer to Joshua, uncertain whether this newcomer meant help or danger. "The real criminal who framed Miss Whitmore has been captured," Thomas announced. "Henderson's entire cattle rustling operation has been exposed. The territorial governor has cleared both your names." Emily's knees went weak with relief. "You mean I'm free?" Thomas nodded. "Completely free. Henderson confessed everything before they locked him up. And Joshua, your captain, wants you back. Says the territory needs honest lawmen like you." Joshua stared at his friend in disbelief. After all these years, standing at the cave entrance with bags of gold in their hands, Joshua and Emily faced an impossible choice. "We could go back to our old lives," Emily said softly. "You could be a lawman again, and I could find work as a teacher." Joshua looked at the treasure, then at Emily's hopeful face. "Or we could start something completely new. Use this gold to help folks like your father wanted." Thomas smiled. "Whatever you decide, you're both free to choose." Emily took Joshua's hand. "What do you say, partner? Ready for a new adventure?"